the petrol prices right now really interest me from an irrationality point of view, because in the months after Brexit, when they were climbing up, people would be saying, oh, those bloody bastards who tick that box, they're making my fuel £1.10 a litre. And then recently with supply chains and coronavirus, the price has shot up to maybe 1.45 a litre. And people were kind of okay with that. Oh, it's something we can't control, so that's okay. And now with this Putin stuff, it's almost like it's your patriotic duty in 2 weeks' time to go and pay 170 a litre just because of those bloody Russians. What is it about pricing that makes us happy to pay more when the context is different?
Yeah, that's a very important finding, which is we don't. I mean, mainstream economics just thinks we just care about what something is and how much it costs. In other words, how much utility will I derive from this, and how much money do I have to sacrifice? We're a social species, so we interpret pricing through the lens of meaning. And if we feel we're being gouged, for example, we will be resentful. Or if we feel we're deriving less value from it than someone else who pays the same price, we will be less comfortable with the transaction. An example of that would be it would probably pay me to subscribe to the Financial Times, okay? But I don't work in banking, I work in advertising, and 20% of the content of the Financial Times, I'm sure, is utterly fantastic, although it's tediously Remainer in its views, and it would annoy me. But nonetheless, I'm sure that 20% of the content is well worth the subscription price. But I would feel that I'm paying effectively for a huge host of articles on the prospect for central banking reform in Paraguay, okay, which are of zero interest to me. And I equally would resent you have to charge Brits less for the New York Times than you charge Americans, because they do feel that, look, New York restaurant reviews just aren't that relevant to me most of the time. And so we effectively, when we decide what to pay for something, we do actually consider the point of view of the seller. It isn't a one-way assessment of utility cost. We actually ask questions about, what does this say about the person selling it, for example, and so price gouging. Richard Thaler wrote a very good piece about this in Misbehaving. About he went to a ski resort and said, look, you're overbooked at Christmas and Easter, and you're underbooked the rest of the year. Why don't you just, very simple economic solution, you charge much more at Christmas and Easter and less the rest of the year. Simple yield management. And the answer there was very simple, which was, yeah, but if you gouge them at Christmas, they don't come back in March. And so, there's an understanding that most transactions take place actually within a wider context of consideration. And economics achieves its mathematical neatness by assuming everything's a one-shot game. And emphatically isn't. If you price gouge people, you run the risk of resentment. It's one of the reasons, Ocado had to make a very interesting decision during the pandemic, which is they basically gave preferential slots to customers who are long-standing customers. Now, a pure economist working for Ocado would just put up the price of everything and acquire all, and actually treat new customers better than old ones, okay? And Ocado did neither of those two things, because they understand that they operate within a wider context of consideration.